I'm obviously getting in that mode. You can hear my tone. Robert, Danny's getting excited. Games are about to start. Woo!
I love
And without any further ado, the Pro Chess League is live, Robert. The 2018 Pro Chess League is underway. You and I are joining the action here in the middle of the day, hence the reason for a halftime show. And there has been a lot that has already happened. In week one, we have 2 of our divisions already completed. The Eastern Division and the Central Division have seen some serious excitement. And I'm going to start right there and ask you, for you, what sticks out as the highlights that we've seen in the first 6 hours of the world's largest international chess league?
Well, Danny, it has to be the All-India matchup. Sure, Vachier-Lagrave was not playing as he's taking a rest in Tata Steel, where he shares the lead. But that matchup was fascinating from start to finish and ended in an 8-8 draw. So that's got to be my highlight match of the first 2 divisions thus far.
Well, right after them, of course, were the Estonia Horses and the Riga Magicians. Estonia taking down Riga in a nail-biter only by a single point. And then Oslo, the new team from Norway, the Oslo Trolls, they barely hang on and kind of come from behind victory style, beating the Armenia Eagles as I bring up the report on that right now. Remind everybody that you can find all of the action at ProChessLeague.com. You should also follow the Pro Chess League blog as every match finishes. Updates are being brought to you by our content staff, writing a report for every match as they get done. As we just said, Oslo defeated the Eagles in a comeback victory. But then right after that, Robert, that's where it all starts. Things start with Magnus Carlsen. They end with Magnus Carlsen when you're talking about chess, no matter whether it's online or over the board. And he led his Norway Gnomes to a dominant victory over the Volga Stormbringers here.
Yeah, Magnus Carlsen is who we thought he was, right? He just absolutely dominated the opposition. He went on to a perfect 4-0 score. And, well, we have one of his games up, don't we?
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump over to that. So in this halftime show, everybody, we're going to be checking in with you, the chatters and the fans. Thanks to everybody who is joining us, whether you are at Twitch TV/chess or Chess.com TV or some other magical portal we're not aware of. Either way, however you're tuning in, we're going to be checking in with you. Please bring us your questions. If you've committed your full Thursday to watching all of this and you've seen all this action already, well then kudos to you. But if you haven't and you're just finding out some of this stuff for the first time, that's what Robin and I are here to do, to try to highlight some of the best games and the most instructive moments. So Magnus Carlsen was black in this game, Robert, and the truth is this game and the match still really could go either way, right? You have Sergei Grigorians, who's known for playing in the Speed Chess Championship, though he lost to Hikaru Nakamura. He did qualify. And he held his own against the Norwegian really until this moment here. Tell everybody the blunder that he played and maybe what he misunderstood about Black's king not being in as much danger as it first meets the eye.
Yeah, here he went rook e5 check, which is a bit strange because the rook was on a nice open file. It could have gone to c8, let's say, and try to poke and prod from the back. But instead, rook e5 check, right? And he allowed the king to go to f6. And once the king went on f6, now it's hitting both knight and rook. And the rook has nowhere to go, which means that f4 is the move to, simultaneously protect the pieces. And after f4 is very simple from Magnus's point of view, because he went bishop to c7, and eventually he gobbled up this pawn on f4 in just a couple moves and went on to win a pretty easy game.
Yeah, and I thought that maybe Sergei had misevaluated that this king was in more trouble than it was. Here he continued with the move knight to e4 check, but after king to g7, we can see very clearly the king is safe. Bob's your uncle in that regard. The rook has to move. He went to e8, and Magnus finally had a clear advantage in this game, and he went on to win. So that's hard. It's hard to assess these moments maybe properly and rapid, right, where you've really held your own against the world champion. You have an opportunity to, I would say, pretty good drawing chances here, right, for white. Rook to c8 you highlighted, but even simple moves like rook back to c4, rook back to c2, any of those moves that sort of safely hold the defensive measure there, I think white would have been fine. So big win for Magnus Carlsen. We knew he would do it. Some of the other top names making their debut to start the day, Robert, after Magnus Carlsen was guys like Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, who actually just finished with his Marcel Migraines. We're going to get to that in a minute. But back to the other games that you and I prepared that might have been fun for the fans to see. Because speaking of Maxime, he is both player and manager. I think he's the world's first Super Grandmaster #3 who apparently is he's into the Pro Chess League enough that he manages the Marcel Migraines, and he deals with the league on all issues from prizes to fair play to whatever. So kudos to MVL. But his teammate didn't necessarily bring the same level of responsibility to the table today to start, did he? Talking about, of course, Yevgeny Vachier in this first game here, where he got outplayed by the international master and really got crushed in this position. Tell everybody the brilliant way that White finished off this game and beat the French former Super Grandmaster, but still very strong Grandmaster in Vachier.
Yeah, Etienne Vachier had a tough day at the office because he lost his first 2 games against brothers from Iceland. So there was the first game he lost was to, I believe it was Bragi. I might be
B-Man, as he calls himself, Bragi Thorensen, I believe. Yep. And he really took it to Vachier here.
And in this position, well, at first glance, White is up in exchange, right? You see the 2 rooks for White, and the rook on A7 looks very powerful, but it is under attack. But instead of just protecting it or moving out of the way, rook takes F7, sacrificing that rook. And after king takes F7, well, what else? Otherwise, you're just giving up this vital F7 pawn. The follow-up with rook F1 check, the king must move and went to E8, and then bishop takes E6. Well, now the black king is in a world of hurt. There's nowhere to run to. And after some desperation by black, it was all downhill from there because despite leveling the material, the attack was too strong.
Yeah, after C4 check, rook F2, like you said, the check was just a computer check. Give your final spike checks before you resign. Computers, if they haven't taught humans anything, they've taught us that. After rook to B7, bishop F7 check was played, which was a really nice way to finish it off, opening the queen to the C8 square so that after rook takes F7, the endgame would ensue. And as you said, the first brother went on to a crushing victory. Now, the second brother who took down Yevgeny Vachier and really put the Marcel Migraines up against the wall, well, he was the recipient of a bit of a gift. How do we classify this mistake by Vachier? Would you put it as a mouse slip, or he was tired, or under some sort of other form of influence? I have no idea, right? Tell everybody what Vachier played in this position as White.
I couldn't believe it when I saw it because a mouse slip would be if he was playing rook to B1 and somehow slipped it over to A1. Well, let's just talk about the move rook B1 for a second.
Yep.
It's not particularly good, right? After rook B1, black just goes B5, kicks that knight from the C4 square, and then brings the rook down to D2 with check, winning the pawn on H2 and just dominating position from black's perspective. Now, at that starting position, right, so instead of rook B1, the best move is definitely rook D1, offering the exchange of rooks, and it should be a drawn endgame. So to go from rook D1 over to A1 is a very strange mouse slip that has only happened to me in bullet chess. Mm-hmm. But considering that Vachier had a lot of time left on his clock, I have no excuses for him. I just don't know how that happens, where all of a sudden you just grab your rook and throw it over to A1, where knight takes A1, wham, bam, thank you, sir, free rook.
Yeah, no, that was probably the shocker of the day. I'm pretty sure this one had the commentators, Lawrence and Jen at the time, talking about it for a while, because you just don't see super grandmasters lose chess games like that, right? Whether even if it is online and there are those extra factors, you got to move the mouse, maybe you're on a touch screen, however you choose to play. So that was a shocker. But in his defense, the man from France, Yevgeny Vachier, did redeem himself, right, for the Marcel Migraines. And I don't even know if we have the full report up because you and I started this halftime show as we do. We started this halftime show really in quick order. So as I go to the Pro Chess League blog and refresh, we do not yet have the report on what happened between what the final score was. But as far as the scoreboard tells us, we already know that the Marcel Migraines did come back and fought their way back into a tie, right? Against no less than the Puffins. Maybe they'll have one of their own viral videos where they go, the Migraines, the Migraines, the Migraines. What do you think about that?
That was just an epic video from last year. That was so unbelievably refreshing to see that kind of chemistry between teammates. And they were so genuinely enthused after that save. I mean, we should have that video every time we do a broadcast.
We really should. And I already tweeted it. For those who don't already follow the Pro Chess League on Twitter, you should do that. The The Pro Chess League is active on social media as well as blogging throughout the whole day. So for those wondering, how do I stay in touch with all the action while you're busy at work? First of all, you can just call in sick. Pretty sure that's okay. And you have your priorities straight. But you can follow everything about the Pro Chess League. Every team has an active social media page. We're updating it constantly with news about things. And speaking of the Puffins, for those who didn't know what happened last year, there's a very, very famous video that went viral when the Puffins managed their own comeback to tie a match. And so I guess what goes around comes around, right, Robert? Because this week they weren't able to hold on to their lead, even though the Migraines were favored ahead of time. The Migraines did eventually come back and eke out that tie. So we've seen chess from Magnus Carlsen. We've talked about the Marcel Migraines, okay? The team that had two of the first two Super GMs. But before we move on to some other games, we should note that Super GMs we were hoping to see today didn't quite show up, right? Magnus Carlsen has his priorities straight, playing on the rest day from Tata Steel. But Fabiano Caruana, he's sitting out for the St. Louis Archbishops. So for those of you who were looking forward to seeing Fabi, don't worry, he'll be playing here in short order. And then Vachier-Lagrave, that's really probably the biggest new name, right? The former world champion playing for the Mumbai Movers. Can't wait to see him make his debut.
Yeah, that's a great addition to the league this year. And I'm actually just very excited to see Vichy play online. We know so many fans and critics wrote him out. They thought that, well, he's done, he's getting old. But then we see him win a World Rapid Championship and perform extraordinarily well in the World Blitz Championship. So Vachier-Lagrave is here to stay. And not only do I want to see him in the Pro Chess League, but I hope we get him for the Speed Chess Championship next year as well, because it would be fantastic, absolutely wonderful to see Vachier-Lagrave take on his esteemed colleagues in speed chess, well, for years to come.
Absolutely. And for those, again, wondering how you can follow all of the Pro Chess League news and updates, if you go to the Pro Chess League site, you can find listings about all the teams. We've already mentioned the team Mumbai Movers, who enlisted the former world champion Vachier-Lagrave and his services. But there's also the team, the Delhi Dynamite, who faced off against them. As you said, they were in a deadlock, a fellow countryman tie, I guess, although I don't think either team was really happy about that, right? A tie is kind of like doing what, Robert? What do they call that?
I don't know how I'm supposed to finish that sentence, so I won't avoid getting myself in trouble.
All right, and so, but okay, so back to week one, as we said. So Vichy doesn't make his appearance, but there were still lots of other games that you and I want to look at here. So let's go back to the other games that we prepared. Yevgeny Bacro made a mouse slip. It was ugly, but he wasn't the only one to go down in spectacular fashion today. Tell us how the young lady, the international master in this game as black, well, she just lost sight. Sometimes that happens in an endgame when your king is so active and it hasn't really been in danger for many moves that you can sort of fall asleep at the wheel, right? Assuming that an active king in the middle of the board is usually not in danger of getting checkmated. Apparently this time it was. And tell everybody what she did here.
Well, first of all, I found it interesting that her username is Diamante Daolite, because I'm pretty sure she's now married to Matthew Cornet, the strong French grandmaster. So I believe she changed her name to Cornet, to Diamante Cornet, but I could be wrong. Anyway,
okay.
in this position,
I didn't know you were so up to date on the chess relationships in the world. So
it's not about being up to date with the gossip. It's about when the United States women's chess team plays the Lithuanian team at the Olympiad, and you have to face a very strong international master. Well, then you do your research and you see
find
when
out.
you want that names are changed. But more importantly, in this position here, let's just note that look at the kings, right? The black king is on e5 up in the center, which is generally quite strong in the endgame. However, that white king has fianchettoed itself into black's territory on the g7 square, which immediately hits that pawn on f7. And if that pawn f7 is lost, then you see that white has a passed pawn f6 and can march towards getting a queen. Now, in the current position, a tragic blunder was made with queen to c6. And before we continue with why that was a blunder, the move d4 from black's perspective is the best move. Not only does it push a passed pawn forward, but it defends the pawn f7 so the king can't capture it, and thus giving black very good chances not only to hold this game, but even some solid winning chances. Now, queen c6 was played in the actual game, and I believe queen takes c6 should still win for white because white will end up taking on f7 and getting a queen. However, just because you can trade queens and then win doesn't mean you shouldn't look for more. And here, queen e3 check means that black only has one move, and that's king to d6. And after king d6, well, queen e7 is all she wrote, and that is checkmate on the board.
Yeah, this must have been a shocker there. Again, these are some things that happen when you're getting under time pressure, and as we said, you've had your king in the middle of the board. A false sense of security can be developed in those cases. So I think the fans love seeing title players blunder just because it makes them feel, as they say, misery loves company, I guess. And so whenever you are reminded that strong players also can make mistakes like this, it feels good, Robert. It makes me feel good. I mean, I'll tell you that. But there's another move here that didn't make me feel so good. You and I, we had some pregame time. We were ready in advance here. I mean, you shaved. We got babyface Bobby here, or Bob the babyface, whatever we want to call your. How smooth is your skin? Will you rub it for the fans real quick?
Just feels pretty good, honestly. I had to get rid of it so I could look pretty for you.
Yeah. So we got babyface Bobby. We've shaved. You've done everything you can, but for the life of everything that is holy on the chessboard, neither one of us could justify White's approach here in a match that proved critical. Right, White misplaying this game is a big reason why I'm drawing a blank as to who the black player was playing for as I pull up the...
That's an Oslo Troll.
That was the Oslo Troll. This was a big reason why the Oslo Trolls were able to complete their comeback. My apologies for that. So in this position, after black... Okay, to his credit, black has been down a piece. And when you're down a piece, you want to keep things messy. Give your opponent an opportunity to go wrong. Sometimes they will, right? The Magnus Carlsen School of Chess. And on that note, black played a4, Robert. It's not the worst idea in the world because after the pawn captures, white would be in big trouble. Here comes the b pawn, right? So white would, but the problem is white doesn't have to capture. One of the most obvious options is to take control of the b4 pawn, the one that black just left behind. But neither of those moves is played. The obvious capture or the much better move. Instead, a move that had you shaking your head. Tell everybody what it was.
Yeah, I just couldn't understand this for the life of me because rook c4 here just allows black to take that rook on c4, right? Knight takes c4 is very obvious. And unlike that Vachier game where maybe there was a mouse slip, that rook has nowhere to go on the c file. Note that the c2, c3, c4, and c5 squares are all capturable squares, right? Any square in that file, black will capture it. So I just don't understand rook c4, and the game was a very simple finish. Perhaps after rook c4, knight takes c4, white was hoping that after b takes c4, the rook on d5 was under attack, and then maybe the b4 pawn could be captured after that. But there's always rook g5 check, and then you push the pawns down the board. So
that's exactly what happened, right? Rook g5 check came, and black almost made it. Well, I don't want to say harder because it is a forced win, and I did do my homework. So rook f5 check followed by the sacrifice on f1 is enough to win should white capture back the rook because these pawns just cannot be stopped. But it did seem a little bit scary to risk that when really any move after you've saved the rook should probably also win here very, very quickly for black. So anyway, yeah, so how does that happen, right? It's the pressure of the moment, the Pro Chess League. There's a lot on the line. It's week one. We're all a little nervous. It's our first time. It's okay to get nervous on your first time, Robert. I've told you that. But how else do we justify a move like rook to c4?
Well, it's been a while since my first time, but I'm trying to remember feelings. And so rook c4, I just can't justify it. No matter how hard I try, it's just not making sense to me. And there is no good rook move. Just frankly, look at the position, right? After any rook move, besides just capturing the rook if you put in a square where I can take it, 8 takes b3, followed by pawn to b2, followed by promotion is fairly simple. Yeah. And so I don't really understand what was going on here. Maybe the player was trying to bring the mouse to the knight on c6 and just somehow slipped on the rook and try to move it up to the knight and just got stuck. But I just don't have an explanation for it. A really tragic blunder. And in fact, as you mentioned earlier in this game, white was up a piece for almost no compensation. And so with this win, this was the fourth game, the fourth round of their match, the match would have been a tie, 8-8. But instead, the Oslo Trolls go on to victory 9-7.
Indeed, they did. And I apologize for not jumping in there, buddy. Just for the first time, started to get a little distracted in the chat and wanted to give a shout out to everybody who's already been with us for the first half of our halftime show. Chess Bay, we love you. We're so happy you're here. We got Daniel A. Herman. We got Zelda. We got Perpetual Stalemate. We got a lot of premium members over in the Chess TV chat. Archimedes, what's up? LOL Micro. I don't know if that's an oxymoron or what. And of course, we got John H.S., the one and only who never goes away. But anyway, Robert. So there we go. We've had a look at a few of these first round games, and we are getting set. You and I are getting set to cover the action that is going to be starting here in just a moment. Right? We've got the Atlantic Division coming up with the Miami champions taking on the Chess Bras, and probably of any of the teams that really shook up their lineups in the offseason. Well, there's a few, so I shouldn't say they led the way. But let's talk a little bit about the Chess Bras and what they did to go out of their way to add some key elements. None other than the women's. I don't know if she is technically the women's world champion, but who keeps track of what FIDE titles people these days anyway? Oops, did I just say that? But she is the strongest female chess player on the planet, and she is now playing for the Montreal Chess Bras.
Yeah, and adding a player of her caliber, Hou Yifan, that is just phenomenal addition for Montreal. However, let's mention that they did lose Fabiano Caruana. He was a workhorse for them last year, as was Li Chao of China, right? So they lost two 2750-plus players. In Fabiano's case, near 2,800. And I don't know if Li Chao's lost rating recently, but the point still holds. They lost their two strongest player and instead added Hou Yifan, who obviously is a great addition. But I don't know. I feel like I don't love the transition because you lose two heavy hitters and you do gain a very strong player, but it's hard to make up. There are not that many 2,700s in the world, so losing two of them in one offseason is a bad trade, if you ask me.
Absolutely, and of course you're talking about, as you said, Li Chao and Fabiano Caruana, but they also gained a grandmaster organically, right? Talk about a farm system approach. International master Amon Hambleton is now a grandmaster. Of course, we have not updated his card here, still known as I Am Amon Hambleton. But as soon as the title is recognized at FIDE, as I just say that their titles don't matter, we will recognize it on Chess.com. And that's a big deal, right? We got to give shout out to that because you have a grandmaster now that has already had a ton of experience playing on Chess.com, brings a little more clout to the table. Plus, he got to shave his beard.
Yeah, that's the most important thing in my book because that beard started looking like Tom Hanks' Castaway style after a certain point. Really was just not looking so good. Amon, we love you, but we just have to call you out in that. Really, just I wonder what his parents were saying about that beard. But anyway, yes, it's great that Amon became a grandmaster. All the congratulations in the world to him and his Hambleton happy hour. But again, as much as you can talk about the farm system and them organically gaining a grandmaster, it's too much of a loss to compensate for.
Yeah, well, So you're saying the Chess Bras are not your preseason pick. That's what you're telling me.
Absolutely not. And that's with all due respect to a very strong team, but they're not my favorite this time around because they lost their best two players. Got it.
Well, shout out to our last sub who just came in. My fault. I didn't give you a shout out there. I'm trying to scroll back through it. I think his name was Gravy Boots. Gravy Boot. That sounds like a great idea. First of all, put gravy in your boot. No, shout out to Gravy Boot. Thanks for the sub there. So, okay, we've criticized the Chess Bras in their off-season for not necessarily improving their lineup. We'll see how they perform. But a team that did add a super GM to their lineup here, we have the St. Louis Archbishops adding Vladimir Fedoseev. You think there's some strategy there adding a north of 2,700-plus player who may not be playing in the candidates come March? Okay, he isn't playing in the candidates come March.
That he is not playing the candidates, and I just gotta give Mannered Monkey in the Twitch chat said, I have some very choice words for Robert Hess. Clearly a Chess Bra fan, and my apologies if I upset you, but it just had to be said. But back to Fedoseev. This is an incredibly talented young player from Russia. He's had some great success over the last year where his rating, I believe when he played in St. Louis in an invitational round robin, it was something like 2670. And all of a sudden now he's nearing like 2730. So that's a very difficult 60 points to gain. He's had a tremendous success over the last year. He's very talented. We saw him pull off some strong performances in some of the speed chess and the World Rapid Championship and World Blitz Championship. So definitely a name to look out for.
I got to say that I don't think Robert meant any insults when he said Maynard Monkey was a Chess Bra fan. He knew Maynard Monkey was a Chess Bra. Robert, just agree with me. You knew that because that's what Robert does most of the time is follow Chess Bra streams. I'm like, Robert, get to work. He's like, I'm watching the Chess Bras, and it just gets weird sometimes. But there you go. So all right, well there you go. We've talked about some of the teams that are coming up for you and I to cover. You're not playing this year. You were playing last year for the Montclair Sopranos. How do you see your former alma mater, if that's a thing, faring in their Week 1 matchup against the other team from St. Louis, the Webster Windmills?
Well, actually, Montclair has done some good things. They have lost me, which is the first good thing that they did. And then, more importantly, they gained a very, very strong player in Bassem Amin, the Egyptian player. So that's a name to look out for if you're new to the Pro Chess League. And even if you're not, he wasn't around in the league last year, that's someone to keep an eye on. He's very strong, was the first player from Africa who reached 2,700. And so he's also a doctor, by the way. So he's clearly an accomplished lad. And then there's Alex Lenderman on the team. Like, he was there last year, and he's had some great performances in the Chess.com Isle of Man. In the World Cup, he knocked out Pavel Ulyanov. So he's proven his might. And my good friend Yuan Ling Yuan is playing this week, and she has a lot of experience in the Canadian Women's Olympiad team. So hopefully for Montclair, she shows up to perform. Okay.
All right. Well, there you go. I want to remind everybody again, as Robert and I bridge the gap here between our seasons, before you and I take the bull by the horns and actually start providing some X's and O's chess commentary, that if we haven't talked about your favorite team, go to theprochessleague.com. It's actually not just go to prochessleague.com and check out all the information you want. You can see the full site schedule, and along with pairings and everything you would want to know about the league. You can check out the teams, as Robert said, his own former team, the Montclair Sopranos. They still have a pretty decent lineup here as I bring up the pictures of most of them that you just mentioned. We'll see how they fare in Week 1 against the Webster Windmills. But let's talk real quick about the final matchup that you and I haven't really previewed yet, is the Blizzard versus the St. Louis Archbishops. So we talked about Fedoseev joining them, the Minnesota Blizzard, big fan favorites, John Bartholomew playing for that team. How do you see that one going down there? The St. Louis Bishops, if you're just watching the Pro Chess League for the first time, are the reigning Pro Chess League champions. They won the inaugural season last year. So without even looking at the lineup, I have to say that I'm expecting them to take it to the Blizzard here as that last match gets underway in about an hour and a half. But what do you see going on in that one?
Well, speaking of homegrown GMs, Andrew Tang just became a Grandmaster himself, so congratulations are in order there. John Bartholomew narrowly missed a Grandmaster norm in the Charlotte Chess Invitational. So, he's playing good chess as well. But let's look at this matchup here. St. Louis Archbishops. We have Vladimir Fedoseev leading the way. Then you have the two St. Louis University students on boards 2 and 3, Dariush and Yarrow. And then you have a 1986 who I have no idea who that is, honestly. But, when you have such a strong 3-board lineup, you really would just want them to score 3 points apiece, and then your fourth board can get 0 out of 4, and you still win the match 9-7. So I think this is just hugely favorable for St. Louis and Minnesota, despite having some fan favorites, in particular John Bartholomew. We all know and love him. I just think that they're very overmatched in this one.
Okay. Well, we scroll down there, and as you just kind of broke down the matchups, we can see right there it'll be Andrew Tang taking on Duncan Shepard. And at least these are the first games. Daniel Gurevich, John Bartholomew, and I am Sean Nagel. A team of international masters, so obviously my heart's with that one. But then, yeah, you got a lot of strong players over there with Fedoseev, Dariush Weish, who won the last Millionaire that will likely ever take place, and then our boy Yarrow. So, yeah, I can't argue with you that it looks like the St. Louis Archbishops simply reloaded and came to defend their title and are going to be a tough one to beat. So,
Danny, I got a question for you though. So,
go for it.
In the past, you and I have discussed, well, is it favorable to kind of stack your lineup and have a lower rated board 4, or to go with the even approach? And that's what Minnesota is doing. And while I do think that St. Louis certainly is favored in this matchup, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Minnesota make some noise, because those kind of even matchups frustrate teams with grandmasters, because in international masters across the board, they're all very strong players, right? Their lowest rated player, Sean Nagel, is 24-32 FIDE. That's a very talented player. And so if you start frustrating the grandmasters who can't score those victories, well, then your team's in big trouble against a lot of the 4IMs who will likely mop up on that board 4.
Well, as it is your job to do, to add drama to our chess entertainment, just like I do, you did a good job with that, convincing me that, okay, a GM doesn't like it when they have to play one strong player after another, but IMs don't like it when they have to play 3 out of 4 grandmasters. So as much as what you're saying, I can get behind, and that it is a balanced team. None of them are people you wouldn't be thrilled about having on your board 4. 3 grandmasters that are not just grandmasters, but they're not just run out of the mill, barely over 2,500 grandmasters here. These are guys that are really good, and so as far as being a balanced team, it's going to be a tough one today for Minnesota. But upsets happen, and magic is real. Babies are made. I don't know what else to say. I mean, things do happen in the world, so who knows?
I mean, speaking of miracles and magic, if anyone's an NFL fan, the Minnesota Vikings pulled off that touchdown in the last second.
That's right.
They're in Minnesota, right? The Minnesota Blizzard here. They've seen a miracle last week. They might want to continue the trend.
That's right. Well, we still have about 1,200 of you hanging out. We super appreciate that. Whether you're at Chess.com TV or Twitch, now's your time here in the halftime show to get involved a little bit. Ask us some questions. Robin and I are going to engage in the chat, both at Chess TV and Twitch, and have a little fun before we talk about some of the things that we're hoping all the fans are aware of that they can take part in. In fact, maybe I'll talk about that right now as we wait for some good questions to come in. The Fantasy Chess League, it's not a league, but there are fantasy prizes, and there is a fantasy competition going on every week, Robert. And if you're wondering how you can sign up, it's too late to do that today because week 1 is already underway. But you can see that we have a bunch of leaders already being listed, whether you're a titled player or a non-titled player. Once the pairings are out for week 2, there will be an updated opportunity for you to sign up and create a fantasy chess team. Most people had Magnus Carlsen on their board 1, but if you can pick a board 1 that isn't Magnus, maybe you'll get an edge one week. I don't know if that's a possible thing. But Robert, are you playing in the fantasy Pro Chess League here? Did you fill out a bracket?
I am not. Do you see? If you don't see my username at the top, it's clear that I'm not playing. No, in all seriousness, I just kind of, I was focusing on the commentary and then just kind of forgot about it. Though I do love fantasy sports and fantasy competition, so I am a little disappointed in myself for missing the boat in that one.
Well, we still have plenty of time to do that because, again, this is just week 1. So for all the fans who haven't done it yet, you can do it next week. We've got some comments coming in here. Somebody asking, what do we think about the team from Australia? You and I have a little bit of space reserved to preview the Pacific Division, even though we're not commentating on that in the halftime show. But let's talk a little bit about that. As far as the Australian, I am looking for the Australia team here. Your thoughts on the Australia Kangaroos? Some really, really young players there. We got Grandmaster Max Illingworth, Grandmaster Anton Smirnov. So as far as the youth goes, they're bringing the noise. They also landed themselves a pretty big free agent in Yevgeny Miroshchenko. So what are your thoughts on the Australian team being able to make some noise this year?
Yeah, Miroshchenko is well known for his commentary, honestly. I haven't seen him play in a chess tournament in a while, but he's often does the commentary at big events, including some of the FIDE Grand Prix and things like that. So that is a good pickup. But locally, they have so many strong players that, well, they don't come into the world stage that frequently because they're not in the 2,700 category. But, Max Illingworth, he is a fan favorite. He's always posting chess puzzles, even some that he creates over on Facebook that I've seen. So it's really nice to see him doing well. He just won the Australian Championship with a 10 out of 11 score. That just shows that I follow way too much chess around the world to even know that. But still, he's playing well. They have a bunch of young talent. They have this other free agent, Alexei Sarana, and he is quite a strong player. They've poached some good talent. They have some great homegrown talent. And, well, I think the Kangaroos we can expect a good deal from, especially, like I said, Sarana, I think he's like 16 or 17 years old. He's from Moscow. And this actually leads into another question I just saw, Danny, that LOL_micro asks on the chess.com/TV chat, why do you think there's so little participation from Russian players, with only one team being Russian, considering Russia is the strongest chess country in the entire world? You may be able to answer that better than I can.
First of all, great question, and thank you, LOL Micro. I can say that on the record, I have to be careful when I say that there may be some top Russian players, some names you know, joining teams at some point during this season as free agent acquisitions, Robert. Apparently I'm struggling to speak this afternoon. So I do not believe the final word is in on the activity of some of the big household Russian names. But I would say that beyond that, it's as far as why there isn't a lot of them is really it takes a local organizer, right? It takes a motivated manager to kind of pull everybody together. And I think that we haven't had as many local managers interested in doing that. There were some that attempted to qualify. For those of you who have been following since the beginning, there were some teams, some Russian-based teams, or at least Eastern European-based teams that attempted to qualify that didn't make it. But I expect to have some of the biggest names in chess, some of the Russian players, join these teams at some point as they continue to get wind of the growth of the Pro Chess League. And obviously, if, as they say, what would Magnus do, right? If Magnus is doing it, then all the cool kids are doing it. And I expect them to be back. So the Volga Stormbringers are a Russian team, by the way. Weren't they the Gorky Stormbringers last year? They changed their name, right? Yeah. So there is, I'm being reminded here, there is one team, and that obviously we already know. We highlighted that the Stormbringers lost to the Norway Gnomes already in week 1, but you're talking Sergei Grigorians as a Russian grandmaster who's well known on Chess.com because he plays in so many titled Tuesdays, and as well as Grandmaster Dmitry Andreikin, right? So if we're looking at this list, Robert, really, if you're looking for a team from Russia, LOL Micro, that's your team to follow. I don't know if you were asking because you want to be rooting for those from the motherland, the mother country, or if it was just at a good old-fashioned Putin fanboy fun. But either way, there you go. Volga's really your team, formerly known as the Gorky Stormbringers. But don't be surprised if some big names. I just don't want to reveal any more details than that because, you know, when you deal with free agent acquisitions, you gotta get some of those big names motivated to play, and something talks and a bunch of other stuff walks. The last time I heard that saying. So we'll see how many big Russian names end up joining some of these teams before all said and done, Robert.
Yeah, and another good question we have, moving on from Russia, is MC2 Wolf asks, what do you think the odds are the Dallas Destiny win their first round match? And also, what do you think about their lineup? So actually, I was looking at this earlier today, and I think the San Diego Surfers, whom the Dallas Destiny is facing tonight, San Diego Surfers is one of the best teams in the league. Let's just say that right out loud. Yep. Because Alexei Dreyev, he may be nearing 50 if he's not already 50, but that guy can play some speed chess all day. Then their second highest rated player is Sam Sevian. The world should know who Sam Sevian is. Young, very talented grandmaster from the U.S. Michael Brown on board 3, international master, but not for long. His FIDE rating's above 2,500. And Tatev Abrahamian on board 4, not only a good friend of mine, incredibly strong chess player with a ton of experience. So Dallas Destiny is rolling out Grandmaster Julio Sidora, strong player. Drew Magnus Carlsen with black at the last Olympiad, was even better. He was up a pawn in that game. Andrei Gorovitz, who finally got his GM title after being 25, 40, or 50 for like a zillion years. And Elshan Muradiabadi, who had a huge slump to drop his rating to 25.07 from what was...
Yeah, I was just going to say, is he sandbagging? We got to talk to Elshan about that.
He's sandbagging for the Pro Chess League. He got his rating down so he could use a better board 4. And Stephen Breckenridge, that's a name that is familiar. I believe he streams some. He's a good speed chess player. Don't really know too much about him as a player, but
known as Justice Bot, excuse me, I'm pretty sure. And we've actually been working with Stephen to get his Twitch channel going even more actively. So we hope to see Stephen. Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. And I wanted to just back up your sentiments. I also believe that San Diego is one of the sleeper teams. They made the playoffs last year, so for those of you who don't just remember them as an immediate household name, obviously they're not the Norway Gnomes with Magnus Carlsen or have the internet prowess or brand that the Chess Bras do, but the Surfers are taking the league very seriously, and I can say that their manager, Keaton Kira is actually one of the most motivated, most ambitious managers out there. Also a very strong international master, and he's one of the first to actually attract a corporate level sponsorship for his team. One of the things that we try to encourage all the teams to do and provide them with a lot of opportunities via the market that Chess.com is lucky to reach with the traffic that we get on the web. And we're fortunate in that position, and it helps us help the chess world because Hirsch's Capital Management is actually sponsoring the San Diego Surfers. And so they actually have a major sponsor that's helping them financially pull together some of the biggest names on their team. So that's really cool to see.
And one of my tweets is hanging on the right side of their page, too.
That's right. So, I was just going to say, who is that unshaven, unruly Bobby Hess right there?
I was on vacation in San Diego a couple weeks ago, and I had to stop by. So that's me over there at the San Diego Chess Club, which actually was an accident. I walked into Balboa Park, and all of a sudden there I see San Diego Chess Club, so I had to stop in. But San Diego's a great team. Dallas has Jeffrey Zhang and Conrad Holt sitting on the bench this week and waiting to jump in, to be subbed in and play some good chess. They also have U.S. Women's Champion Sabina Feuscher, so not to sleep on that team. But again, we just talked about San Diego, but Danny, we talked about this at length earlier, and I also want to tell everybody that I think the absolute favorite is the Chengdu Pandas. I freaking love that team. I'm allowed to say freaking, right? Like I didn't.
Yeah, freaking is okay, man.
Well, I just need to stress.
You know why? It's because you're freaking passionate about the Chengdu Pandas, and it's not just because you love their adorable little panda logo, right? I mean, you are in love with the Chengdu Pandas. They
are anything but kind and sweet over the board. Just look at this lineup. So for today's lineup, you have Yu Yangyi, who is 2750. Does more need to be said about a 2750 rated player? I don't think so. You have Nihua on board 2. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing. I'm trying my best. Who's 2675. You have Zhu Wenjun, who's playing for the Women's World Championship title and is the second highest rated player in the world right now, I believe, at 2575. And then look on board 4, Chu Ruotong. That says 2173 next to her name. But last I checked on the FIDE website, her current rating is like 2280 or something like that. So she's gained many rating points. And generally speaking, it's difficult for Chinese players to get a lot of external, outside of China experience. So they tend to be quite underrated, especially at those lower ratings. You see that all the time in the Chinese chess league. Strong players go in and they come out with fewer rating points than they started with. So that's my favorite team. Not to mention that their bench includes players like Wang Yue, who formerly was 60, and now is just a tad under 2,700. And they have just other grandmasters and international masters, and I'm sure their other 2000s are incredibly underrated as well. So that's my favorite team in the Pro Chess League this year.
Yeah, and I don't think any team is boasting the same strength of players that are considered local status. This is an absolute monster lineup. Could not agree with you more. We also know they were one of the most motivated teams to get going and contacting us at the end of last season and really wanted us to kind of give them a slot. We held our ground and they qualified in our last year's October qualifier, as every team will have to do from here on out. And on that note, one thing we can remind the fans about as the Pro Chess League kicks off this year is that every team you see, obviously, super excited to be here, and, every one of them has the ambitions and the dreams to win. But teams are not just fighting to win the Pro Chess League, right, Robert? They're also fighting for their lives to go on to the next season. Kind of a cool sort of Euro club football soccer thing we added to this year that basically if you don't perform well at one point of the season, it's not just about mailing it in for the rest of the season. You're not just going to put away your best players or become one of those guys who, plays his bench for the rest of the season, right? You're not a coach who's playing for the draft lottery. Because if you don't perform well enough, you will get cut and then have to requalify to even be in the league, and that will apply to every team in the league, right? So that's one of the most interesting things that I think is going to add to some drama as the year plays out this year. Yeah,
it's sort of like the Premier League. You have to stay in the into this high enough into the standings to keep your spot. It's a great addition. It's nice to see that it raises the level of competition, and it actually makes sure that no team just kind of slacks off after they start losing a bunch of matches. There's motivation, there's incentive all throughout. And Danny, I just wanted to push back a little bit. You said Chengdu is the strongest local players, and I would agree with that. But I also think that it's you have to mention that same conversation as the Webster Windmills, because that team is just spice central. They're spicy. Susan Polgar has the spice program over there at Webster University, and between Lequang Liem, the 40 rated player from Vietnam, they have all the students, and they're kind of like the Alabama Crimson Tide of college football in the chess world. They just get all these top-notch talent, recruit like crazy, and then here their team is just full of players. I think they have 6 players over 2,600 FIDE. So that's quite a mouthful of mouth-watering lineups for sure.
I stand corrected. You're right. There's a lot more G's on that page than I's, and I think the Webster Windmills. Yeah, well, St. Louis itself being sort of the U.S. chess capital, and in many ways maybe the world chess capital these days, certainly attracts a ton of talent, both because of the club and their efforts, as well as Susan Polgar's program there at Webster. So, yeah, I didn't even know that Shimonov was playing for them. I've seen him actively on Chess.com lately, but I didn't know he was in the States. So that tells you how closely I'm following college chess. But so there you go. Absolutely, you're right about that. I guess my point, to bring it back to the point to bring it back about Chengdu, I think, as you said, they're led by Yu Yangyi, who in many ways is just, he just had this incredible performance throughout all summer. He's been playing as one of the top players in the world. So I think that separates the Chengdu Pandas a little bit, but you're right. I guess we'll see if balance of more GMs than having a really a huge stud like that on top makes a difference. But some of the other players that we haven't talked about yet in the Pacific Division, we've talked about the Seattle Sluggers, or I'm sorry, I was actually asked a question about that, and I'd like to bring up the Seattle Sluggers page because I forgot to answer that. Somebody asked if Hikaru was playing this week, and one of the easiest ways you can find out is just go to ProChessLeague.com and click on the pairings. But if you go there and click on them, you will see that unfortunately for Seattle, Hikaru is not in the lineup this week, and that's actually going to have them, I think, I guess they're still in decent shape. How do you see this one going down between the Sluggers and Australia?
I think this is actually one of the better matches of the day because it's a lot of unknowns. Australia, as we mentioned, first time in the league. They have a lot of local talent. And, well, look at their lineup today. Very even. It's sort of like Minnesota, but a bit stronger, at least a bit higher rated, I should say. So a strong lineup from top to bottom. Seattle has Sargsyan, the very strong Armenian player. He's won numerous gold medals for their national team. And then they have Georgi Margvelashvili, who is a good grandmaster. And then younger player Bryce Tiglon, and Roland Fang is a name I've seen on standings, but I don't actually know the player at all. I don't know how old he is. I think he's like 16 or something. I'm pretty sure he's a teenager. So some young talent to round out the bottom boards. But I'm gonna lean towards Australia on this one. I just want to see the Kangaroos get off to a jumpstart their season with a win.
I'm surprised on that. I'm going to challenge you and say I expect Seattle to get the win, mainly because of who I see there at the top. I think Sargsyan is going to score well against that youthful grandmaster and international master crowd. And I sensed in your tone, I'm not sure that Margvelashvili is the strongest grandmaster. So I was about to say I agree with you. That's what you said in your tone. But he is a grandmaster, and he is experienced.
Whoa.
And
whoa.
I'm not putting tone in your mouth, but I sensed it. Okay.
Wow, that is you just really put words in my mouth that I did not say. So
I wouldn't say Margvelashvili is a stronger GM necessarily than Smirnov or Lee. I guess that's my point. Or Lai, depending on how we pronounce that. But I think Sargsyan is going to score well, and I think that's going to be the difference for Seattle in that one there. But let's talk a little bit about the San Jose Hackers. They also did really well last year. Some fan favorites. I could say favorites of our CEO and founder there, Eric, who loves himself his local team, tries to show his support there, and they always bring it. They have a very, very strong lineup. Of course, known at the top is the guy who's probably going to be doing serious work at the candidates in the middle of the season, which is why they tried to stack themselves around the Vachier Mamedyarov. But it's not just Mamedyarov at the top as far as well-known names. You even have the youngster Christopher Yu, who's well-known mainly for his cuteness, I think, online and videos. He packs a mean chess game. in that adorable, probably like Mickey Mouse backpack that he has. But he is a dangerous chess player. He does pack a mean punch. In addition to being adorable as all giddy up. So how do you see, let's talk a little about the Pacific Division and this matchup here between the Hackers and the Rio Grande Ospreys here with Mamedov, Azoria, Churilla, lots of people going there for the Hackers this week.
Yeah, I mean, there's a noticeable absence with Mamedov. So instead of, they got someone else whose name starts with Mamed. And in this case, it's Rauf Mamedov, who is a very talented rapid player. I mean, he's better at rapid than he is at classical, I believe, and better at blitz, the faster time controls. And he still is a very, very strong classical player. So I think he actually recently broke 2,700. So he might even be underrated according to the ratings that is being used for this league. He's 2,709 right now. I just checked. So the guy's gained 30 rating points from an already very high rating.
Guy's got game.
Yeah, dude can play. And so, on the bench this week, Daniel Naroditsky, Zviad Azoria, who just lost in the man versus machine match, and our buddy Kostya Kavutsky. Right? We got a fun-looking team over there. But for this specific week, Azoria is playing this week. My apologies. But Rio Grande is a strong team. One of those darn college kids. All of them go to University of Texas at Rio Grande Valley. I believe that's what it's called. And strong lineup. Week after week, they'll roll out some good lineups. Camille Dragoon is a talented player. He did well last year. And I like San Jose. I don't know. I love their logo. That's really what does it for me.
Yeah, really.
Just the Hacker logo and just the Hacker name is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And this guy, Ivan Key, on the last board. I don't know much about Ivan Key, but I'm going to guess he's a youngster. He's probably slightly underrated. And yeah, I just looked him up on FIDE.com. He's 2207 now, whereas in the pairings, he's 2157. So he's gained a good chunk of rating. He's 14 years old, so he's a young guy. And, well...
nobody likes playing a 14-year-old kid. That's just a fact. Because you never know what they're capable of, and no one likes playing that face either. Right there with Christopher Yu rocking the rainbow headband. But I agree with you. The Hackers are one of the favorites for sure in my eyes in the Pacific Division. I think looking at them as well as the San Diego Surfers, of course. We've the Chengdu Pandas. Wow, the Pacific Division is really it's packed, man. The Pacific Division is going to be a slugfest. Pun intended about the sluggers down the stretch there, especially if Hikaru Nakamura is featured consistently in the lineup for the Seattle Sluggers. That's going to be one of the big questions. We know that Hikaru was a huge free agent acquisition last year for the Miami Champions, but this year sort of switching coasts, now playing for Seattle. If you could see a lineup that might one day feature Hikaru Nakamura, Tigran Petrosian, and Gabriel Sargsyan, the Sluggers will also be a force to contend with for sure.
Yeah, and I actually want to add another key addition in this division is Lenier Dominguez is playing for the Las Vegas Desert Rats. And Dominguez is a phenomenal speed chess player in addition to being a great classical player. He performed admirably at the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz portion of the Grand Chess Tour. He's been well known in the professional chess community for a long time, and he's a free agent pickup for Las Vegas. And it's important to note that Nazi Paikidze, who was a free agent for Miami last year, has returned home. She lives in or at least in the state of Nevada, and I believe in Las Vegas. And so she is now local, joining the squad, and pretty strong team with Dominguez at the top. But
yeah, and I didn't realize how much the West Coast did poaching of the Atlantic Division. Right, last year, Lenier Dominguez, Hikaru Nakamura, and Nazi Paikidze all played for the Miami Champions. They're all on the West Coast now, so. Poor Miami. I didn't know that, but okay, let's talk about the Miami Champions since that's going to bring us full circle anyway and head us back to the division that you and I are going to be getting set to cover here any moment. But okay, so they do have some strong local support there. Julio Becerra, a formerly well-known writer on Chess.com, doesn't write articles for us anymore. You have Caseta Perez as a grandmaster there, so a couple of strong grandmasters, but definitely not the star power necessarily that they had last year, but who knows, maybe they'll perform better relying a little more on their local talent this year.
No, I think their lineup just got decimated, to be honest. They should change their team name from Champions to something a little bit more modest. They've lost a lot of top talent.
Don't tell us what you really think.
Yeah, so. I mean, I'm being frank with you here. And they have Ichirizaga, who is a strong grandmaster, and that's a nice addition for them. But you just mentioned a couple names there: Nakamura, Dominguez. They lost Nazi Paikidze as a strong board 3 or board 4. So they picked up the Venezuelan superstar Ichirizaga, but that's not making up for all this lost talent. So maybe now the Chess Bros can forgive me that I've insulted another team, perhaps even worse than I insulted them. By the way, is Maynard Monkey, is that Amon Hamilton?
A Maynard Monkey? No. It's his last name is Kurtz. I don't know.
Okay, I have no idea what the Chess Bros handles are, so I just saw that person was upset with me, and yeah, I don't, whatever. Back to the actual action. I want to mention the Pittsburgh Pawn Grabbers, Danny.
Yes, sir.
Because I'm very happy for them. Last year, there was sort of a punching bag every week. Shabalov led the way, and he is a strong grandmaster. How many times has he won the U.S. Championship? 4 times? Is that right?
Enough. Enough is what he would say. He's won it enough.
Right. He's won it enough.
Right.
And he may be 50 years old, but he still packs a mean punch on the chessboard. And the Pawn Grabbers added a Wonder Liang, the very strong young American grandmaster who is even a local player. So they're all local players, even though I don't believe a Wonder lives in Pittsburgh, but I guess he lives near enough to be counted as local. But they have international master Atulya Shetty. And so between those three and adding some 23, it looks like they have a bunch of 2,300 plus players, at least they're in respectable territory. Like really, last year, you play Pittsburgh, you just crushed them. That was known. Now it's really not so easy because once Shaba gets hot, I mean, that guy can take down anyone in a tactical slugfest. He's just really quick with the tactical vision. So I'm very happy to see them recharge for the new year.
Agreed, and I think that the Pittsburgh Pawn Grabbers deserve the success. Also one of the hardest working teams in regards to social media and keeping their fans actively involved. So we also hope that they have a better season this year, and I think they will. I think they've refueled and restacked their lineup and some organic improvement there with a Wonder Liang only getting better, although I don't think he played for them last year like you were saying. So either way, checking back in with the chat, you're definitely getting some hate for not knowing who Maynard Monkey was, but I'm going to forgive you for that, buddy. We're just going to have to educate you later on the ways of Twitch chess.
It's fine. Like I'm not upset about not knowing, but I do have to give a shout out on the Twitch chat to WCM Oprah Winfrey, because that's a phenomenal username.
It is a great username. Back over to the Chess TV chat. FIDE Master Mike Klein up in the house, the Pro Chess League official account, likely being manned there by the one and only commish, Mr. Greg Shahade. And everybody who's here, we're super excited that you are. I want to remind you all, because not as many people played our fantasy league as we would like. Moving forward in future weeks, make sure you go to the Pro Chess League site and get ready for filling out your bracket the moment the pairings are live. Every week you can do it. We are giving away premium memberships at Chess.com every week. I believe it's a 3-month diamond for first every week, a 2-month diamond for second, and a 1-month diamond for third. So lots of diamond memberships. Diamonds are Pro Chess League fans' best friends. They look great. Next to your username, and make sure you play the fantasy chess competition. And if anybody's ever looking for advice on how to fill out their bracket in fantasy chess, we had somebody put together some advice last year before the playoffs began. And as Robert and I take one of our last quick breaks before the action gets underway here, we're going to remind everybody, I don't know what this joker did here, but if you're ever wondering of some systems, maybe some methods, maybe some techniques that you can do before you fill out your fantasy bracket each week, this might be this might be helpful for you. With the 2017 Pro Chess League playoffs approaching, I knew Chess.com and most of the world would be relying on me to predict a winner. Before filling out my bracket, I knew I would need to fine-tune my skills to make sure I could shake off the rust and put forth the kind of effort and provide the kind of insight that only an international chess master could. So naturally, I first conversed with the chess experts, hoping that their experience might lead me to an obvious conclusion. I engaged in only the most professional of methods, reviewing each team's individual strengths and weaknesses, before ultimately deliberating for hours on just how each team might fare in every possible head-to-head matchup. I relied on the tried and true methods of scientific experiment. Surely, this might help lead me to an obvious choice for the 2017 Pro Chess League winner. Would the study of each team's modern culture, and perhaps even gaining a deeper understanding into their local dance styles, help me to make my decision? I figured it was worth a shot. I reviewed the chess bras and their, well, the Delhi Dynamite, a powerhouse during the 2017 Pro Chess League season. I looked into their roof dancing culture, but in the end, with this study proving too difficult, I reverted to some of my older, more comfortable dance moves. Still searching, I engaged in extreme sport in front of hundreds of screaming fans. Perhaps, I thought, the answer was written in stone. So I practiced for hours and hours on the battleground of this ancient game. Fighting the elements and struggling with fatigue, I eventually emerged victorious, yet still questioning the truth of my own methods and whether I had actually found the answer to who will win the 2017 Pro Chess League. With this answer still eluding me, I grew frustrated. I turned towards inner reflection, meditating in the hopes of an obvious winner presenting himself. Then I thought, I might need to master my own mind the old-fashioned way, with extreme psychological focus. Still bewildered, and now feeling a little depressed, I gave in to some old bad habits, turning towards food, asking the universe to present itself in the form of SpaghettiOs. Unfortunately, this left me more confused than ever. And in that moment of darkness, I realized that one more approach, however unconventional it might be, remained as an option. I could fill out my bracket on Chess.com and think hard about each of my answers along the way. I could then submit it for review along with the rest of the Pro Chess League fans. Maybe this would lead me towards the winning bracket and the ultimate prize of keeping my job. Having the winning bracket for the 2017 Pro Chess League competition. In the end, I figured it was worth a shot, and I hope you will too. Join me live on Chess.com TV as I pick the winners. And we're back with that advice over. There are so many different ways that you can engage with the Pro Chess League to help you fill out your fantasy bracket each week. And if any of those helpful tips that I engaged in last year are useful, obviously Robert's never engaged in that level of hard work, right, to really figure out how to make good chess decisions, have you?
So you mean all this, warm-up show, halftime show, all the knowledge that I just spouted out because of the research I've done, that was definitely not hard work. You're right.
Did you play hopscotch?
No, because I didn't have a hopscotch court to play hopscotch.
All right. Well, anyway, thanks everybody for humoring us. We came up with the idea for a halftime show not too long ago, and I think we're going to keep doing it. Robert, maybe we should do a halftime show every week. What do you think?
I think it's less entertaining than the Justin Timberlake, Janet Jackson halftime show, but I think for the fans it'll have to do.
You know what? It just might. And we don't have much time left. So whether the fans wanted a halftime show or not, they got it. I want to thank all roughly 1,300 of you who have pretty much been buckled up tight the whole time. You guys are super fans. Again, if you want to know anything more about the Pro Chess League that we have not discussed with you during this halftime show, you have about 4 more minutes to head over to ProChessLeague.com, browse the site, let us know if we're missing the boat on anything, other things you would like to see. We're going to be bringing you player stats. Obviously, the scoreboard there right at the top is being updated almost instantly throughout the day. We are working super hard to make sure that you can find the results in games. And in fact, if you are joining us at Twitch right now, you can go to Chess.com TV, and right below the player, there is a button to follow your favorite team instantly. So there's a lot of different ways to make sure you follow the Pro Chess League. We're trying to do everything we can to make sure that the fans have all that they need to follow it, Robert. And we, of course, always want to hear back from everybody about whether or not we're doing a good enough job. So I also want to give another shout out to all the subs and the support we've received. Premium members at Chess.com. Subscribers at twitch.tv/chess. With you, all of this is possible. We thank you. We love you. And I'm obviously getting in that mode. You can hear my tone. Robert, Danny's getting excited. Games are about to start.